Welcome, everyone, to the It's Official podcast alongside Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. Jeff, I like to say this podcast is about no bull, right? I mean, we usually tell it like it is, but we got a lot of bull this week. We got the Holy Bull, we got Citizen Bull, we got plenty to talk about. Our topics along the Triple Crown Trail just full of bull this weekend.
But we're going to tell the truth. That's what we're going to do because it's official, and if it's official, it's got to be true. And there's lots to talk about. There's lots to evaluate. A lot of questions still to be answered, but we learned a lot as well, I thought, and we will see how it all shakes up down the road because at this stage, as we pass into February, there really is room for only, at the most, 2 more preps prior to the Kentucky Derby, and every prep counts. You got to run well in the next one because you may not get a chance to run in the following one. On the other hand, there are going to be some trainers who are going to say, I don't need 2 trips. I'm going to just run one more time.
Right.
They don't want to burst anybody's bubble by running too many times and then actually losing. So we're learning quickly. There are a lot of horses are rising, and there are a few that fell flat last week. We'll talk about them as well.
It's a very interesting time on the calendar because several big name 2-year-olds from last year still haven't run yet this year, and that's not totally odd. But at the same time, you're talking about some horses who came out of races this past weekend that only have 1 more prep left. So you've got horses who are on the doorstep, literally cleaning their feet on the welcome mat. And then you got other horses we haven't seen since last year's Breeders' Cup or Thanksgiving weekend at Churchill, those kind of horses. So it's an interesting time. It's also the time when the Triple Crown nominations were due, and they were announced earlier today. 373 horses have been nominated at the early stage for the Triple Crown. We'll talk about some of those horses for sure over the next 30 minutes or so. 54 horses from Japan amongst those 373 nominees. I think losing by 2 noses in a controversial Derby finish has kind of brought the magnet to Japan, and everybody from overseas wants to take a shot now, Jeff.
Yeah, I think we might see some of those in Dubai too. So hopefully we'll get a fairly good line on them. We have to get a good line on them because there's no more Japanese 3-year-olds sneaking up on us.
No.
If they're good, we'll know it. And the one that they ran last year was really, really good. And a lot of people didn't want to believe that. Now, I think if you go out and run well somewhere, if not in Dubai, then maybe even in Japan, you've got to consider them. You have to.
Yeah, Forever Young kind of carried the torch, if you will, for all of these horses from Japan who are sure to follow. Let's start off with our first of 5 topics this week on It's Official. And as our new segment here in 2025 opens each show, it's our Goosebump Award. Which horse gets Jeff excited, gets the goosebumps up and down the arms from the past weekend of racing? Jeff, we've got all these 3-year-old colts to talk about, but the Goosebump Award goes to
Copan. She's not a 3-year-old colt, but she's bringing back memories of Beholder. At least she is to Richard Mandela. I'll talk about that in a second. I just want to say that we started this segment first of the year, and it's been easy. There's always been a goosebump. Yeah. Some weeks I'm really going to have to pull one out of the hat, but so far so good. And when Copan won this race and did so
Santa
with
Monica,
a 110 Beyer speed figure, and did it and just demolished 3 good fillies. I was kind of concerned that when I made her the morning line favorite that I was missing something, that maybe I was overestimating her because she was 35-1 when she won the La Brea last time out. This time she's 6-5, and she ran like a 3-5. This was exceptional. Not only did she do it the right way, but she did it with a number that makes her faster than most Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint winners over the years. So she looks like the real deal. And she's out of a Victory Gallop mare. Now, Victory Gallop was not a great racehorse or sire. Oh, he was a pretty good racehorse, but not a great sire. But if you want stamina, that he'll give it to you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I think they're going to stretch her out again.
Well, this is the ultimate, if you missed the wedding, don't attend the funeral situation where you talked about the 37-1 win in the La Brea. She came back in the race this past weekend, the Santa Monica, at a very short price, but she delivered the goosebumps. Let's take a look at Copan in the Santa Monica with Frank
In
Miramati.
front at the top of the stretch, Hope Road will try to counter in second. Then it's Ricci and Splendor, 3/16 to go. And Copan gets the upper hand on Hope Road with a furlong left to go, putting 2 lengths on her. Then it's Ricci in third. And Copan passes the 16th pole in complete command. The La Brea Santa Monica double to Copan. Very talented. Wins by 4 widening lengths.
You know, sometimes they just miss the boat, the gamblers. And in her case, they absolutely did last time. And you say, was it a fluke? I went back and looked over the last 10 years in the BetMix database, graded stakes winners who were 37 to 1 or more like her. The names you see horses like Country House and Rich Strike in the Kentucky Derby. They were kind of like the one-hit wonder types. Caravel in the Breeders' Cup, filly and mare sprint when she took on the boys the first time. But the one that really kind of looks like her in terms of the public missing the boat was Nick's Go. He was 70 to 1 when he won the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland back when he was a 3-year-old, and he turned out to be outstanding. Sometimes the public just misses these horses early on in their career, and they go on to make you forget that they ever went off a price like that. I don't think we're ever going to see Copan 37 to 1 again.
No, I mean, if she was going to be a price, she'd have been a price in the Santa Monica, even in 04's field, because she was 37 to 1. And you go back and look at that race, the La Brea, and you watched how she trained prior to that race, and you knew she wasn't a fluke. This was not some loosen the lead over a speed bias, gold rail type of win. You couldn't pick it. You could not pick it apart in any way, shape, or form. She comes back and she does the exact same thing. And one of the reasons why she did that was because she trained just as well, if not better, after the La Brea than she did before the La Brea. And as you remember, I liked her in the La Brea. I wasn't going to say that she's going to win, but I had her 15 to 1 in the morning line, and she went off at more than double that. And she won like a 6 to 5 shot. So now I have a question to ask you, Jeremy. I know Richard is thinking maybe I got another Beholder. And Beholder was more of a sprinter and bred more like a sprinter than Copan was. And of course, eventually she won the Pacific Classic at 1.25 miles. And I think that maybe Richard's thinking the same thing here, even though he's run this filly twice, 2 turns last year as a 3-year-old, and she did not run well, or as well as this, obviously. So do you look at her number, you look at the who she beat and how she did it. Would you be tempted to just kind of bide your time and wait for the Breeders' Cup Sprint over 7 furlongs, which he's now 3 for 3 at? Or do you go for the gold now, stretch her out and find out, and maybe or maybe not screw up a good thing? What do you think?
Well, I don't think you're going to totally screw her up by extending her out somewhat, right? To go from 7 furlongs to, say, 1 1/8 in Grade 1 company or something like that in one shot might be biting off too much. But the Beholder Mile is like the premier race in Southern California for these distaffers. And again, you're just going the mile distance. So it's a spring race, and I think it kind of fits where she's at. And you're going from 7/8 to a mile. You're only adding additional furlong. I know 2 turns to configuration is a whole different ballgame, but that's what you're trying to find out, right? It's not necessarily how far she can go, is can she be as effective around 2 turns as she is with 1? And so I think the Beholder Mile makes plenty of sense to take a shot at. And when you look at the Southern California older fillies and mares, I mean, you're looking to find like that follow-up to Adair Manor. I think we've got some decent fillies and mares in Southern California, but she might be better than all of them if she takes this form from 1 turn to 2. So I would take the shot. And then look, if she doesn't run well in the Beholder Mile, you always have the cutback. She's cut back in distance successfully in the past. It didn't totally screw up with her, screw her up. So I would take the shot. There's more with the fillies and mares, and to me, that's where I would look. And with the Breeders' Cup back at Del Mar this year, she's going to get to have, a West Coast home game of sorts anyway. So find out where she belongs. But I think she can fit in a lot of different places. And you always have races like the Humana Distaff and things like that. If you want to go to Churchill at 7/8 of a mile on Derby Day and run against some top-notch Grade 1 types there in the national spotlight. So I'd give the Beholder Mile a shot. And if that doesn't work out, then look at the Humana Distaff.
I'm going to take the devil's advocate view. I'm telling Richard Mandela, as I always do, how to manage his horses. That's what I do. Because after all, he's in the Hall of Fame. What does he know? But the thing is that Copan, as you pointed out, she's already won a Grade 1. All right. Mm-hmm. Winning the Beholder, if you're looking for purse money, nice, but it's not going to make or break her as a racehorse and stuff. What I would do, and you mentioned the Humana Distaff and a few other 7/8 races, and even a mile 16th Um, or not, well, you wouldn't go a mile on 16th at Aqueduct, but you could go a mile, one-turn mile there.
Mhm.
You could go east and maybe even at Saratoga and win a
Yeah.
7/8 race there. What you would be accomplishing then is building up enough capital that you would be the champion 3-year-old Eclipse Award winner. You got the Grade 1 win. You want to be champion sprinter. The Del Mar race, the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint, is at 7/8 already.
Mhm.
And I don't see the need to do that. I would win my Eclipse Award. I've got many. I'll have at least one Grade 1 in the bank.
Mhm.
If you want to stretch her out as a 5-year-old and develop her that way,
Yeah.
you could do that. I mean, she's out of a Victory Gallop mare by Omaha Beach. I just don't think the Beholder does anything for her. And these people, Spendthrift, I don't think they're desperate for the purse money. That's just me.
That's true.
So I would probably leave well enough alone. And last year they stretched her out, but they also had to put her away 8 months after that. So sometimes, you can stretch her out and won't bother. Maybe it will. I don't know. So I would say that that I would not be in a rush to do that. I'd train her 7/8. There's not a horse in the country can beat her going 7/8 doing anything based on what we've seen. And I would roll up enough wins that even if you stub your toe in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, you're still going to be the champion. And then if you want to run at age 5, then stretch her out if you want. That's what I would do. That's not what they're going to do. I promise you. She's going into Beholder. And then after that, who knows? And the reason why she's going into Beholder is because Richard did it with Beholder, and he figures, maybe correctly so, if I can do it with Beholder, I can do it with this one. And he might be right.
We're going to find out in short enough time. Let's go to our second topic this week on It's Official. Did we learn anything? That's the question, talking about Citizen Bull, the winner of the Bob Lewis, the 2-year-old champion from last year. Jeff, he came back in the Lewis this past weekend. 5-horse field, 3 of them trained by Bob Baffert. Of course, he was one of those 3. He figured to be the controlling speed. He did stumble coming out of the starting gate, and we're going to give fans a chance to see this race in its entirety because the trip and the bobble at the start are kind of like what we have to take away from it, right? The rest of it ran all to script. So let's get your thoughts about the bobble at the start. Before we go ahead and look at the full race replay, were you surprised by the way he recovered from the start? Were you impressed by it? What do you make of the performance and the initial jumps for?
I was impressed. I've seen lesser trouble victimize a horse to a point where it costs them the race, but Citizen Bull picked himself up very nicely. That was a good athletic move there. It's like breaking a tackle on the 10-yard line where you're supposed to go down, but you maintain your balance. And I'm pretty sure we'll see that in the Super Bowl by one particular running back. But anyway, the thing is about Citizen Bull is after he got the lead, and clearly Rodriguez and Juan Hernandez were had no intent of going head-and-head with him, which may not have been the case if he had been in a different barn, who knows? But again, Baffert's not going to mess them both up by going head-and-head. What really messed this race up for me was that Clock Tower, I grabbed him, and that was never going to work. So they played defensively with Clock Tower, and all what happened was it handed the racetrack to Citizen Bull, and he went about his business doing exactly what we know he can do, and has done now 3 times. And I don't know whether we learned a lot about him other than he's at least as good now as he was last November when he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And Jeremy, that's not always the case. They don't always come back.
Yeah.
So he's good now, but he still has to prove to me that he can take heat or maybe take dirt. And so far, he has not had to do that.
Now, one of those is a mental issue, right? Can you take heat? The other's a physical issue. Do you handle the dirt back in your face? The good thing about this is he did get that mental issue at least thrown at him of what do you do when things don't go right at the start? He didn't just jump into the bit and run off like a lot of horses do when they stumble at the start. He was kind to his rider. He still came back to him and was able to control the pace. A lot of times horses will just run off after a stumble at the start like that and then go too fast. So we at least saw that part of it. That's part of the equation. We'll have to learn more about him. So what did we learn? Let's find out over the next minute 47 or so here in the Bob Lewis. Here's Frank Miramonte with the full call.
In the gate. And they're off in the Robert B. Lewis, and Citizen Bull bobbled out of the gate. He did recover quickly. Rodriguez is going to the front. Here's Citizen Bull now sprinting quickly on the inside to take command. Clock Tower comes away third, widest of all. Madaket Road tucks in along the inside of Valentine's Candy. They're heading to the 6 furlong pole, and it is Citizen Bull who will carve out the fractions. He's pretty keen and leads by a length and a half to Rodriguez. They're followed by Clock Tower in third. Frankie Dettori has a nice hold of Madaket Road, 4 lengths off the leader, and Valentine's Candy outside of him with 5 furlongs to travel. It's Martin Garcia and the 2-year-old champ, Citizen Bull, leading by a length and a half. Clock Tower takes second, Rodriguez between those two. Then Madaket Road inching up closer along the inside. He takes third as Rodriguez has lost a couple of spots. And Rodriguez now 4 lengths off the lead coming to the 3/8 pole. And Valentine's Candy at the back of the field, midway on the turn. Citizen Bull opens up 2.5. Rodriguez is now re-rallying on the outside. So he obviously wasn't comfortable, but he is now as he comes after Citizen Bull at the top of the stretch. Madaket Road is down at the rail. 3/16 of a mile to go. Citizen Bull still in control. Madaket Road trying to get into second, past the furlong pole, and Citizen Bull better than ever coming to the 16th pole. He is back in a big way. Citizen Bull leads them all the way. Another Robert B. Lewis for Bob Baffert. Second goes to Rodriguez. Madaket Road was third.
So 136 and 3, the final time there. I think we find out in about 147. That was the running time of the video, not the running time of the race, which would have been a terribly slow mile. But let's talk about this mile that we saw here in the Bob Lewis, Jeff. They came home in 25:72, the final quarter, so they didn't come home particularly fast in there. And in terms of a brisk late pace rating, a 94 for Citizen Bull, that paled in comparison to his late pace figures that he got in the American Pharoah. 15 points less, 13 points less than he had in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The difference in those races is they went 112 and change for the opening 6 furlongs. Here he went 110.99, about 5-6 lengths faster at least than he went in those other races, and he didn't come home with the same kind of late zip. Maybe that's a product of the fact that it was his first start in several months. Maybe it's a product of the fact that they went a little bit faster early and it took away some of his starch late. Visually, he looked fine, but on the clock, it wasn't that great at the end.
And let's not forget that the Derby, last I checked, is still 1.25 miles, not a mile. So he did what he had to do, and he did it nicely. And the number was good for a mile, but that he can't count on just cruising on the lead 23, 47 inch, whatever it was, 47. That's not going to happen. And he's going to have to go 1/4 mile out. I know that given this kind of trip at a mile at Santa Anita against 2 other Bob Baffert horses who were never going to challenge him early, that was not in the cards, that he can do this. I didn't learn anything. Right. Other than he's good. I know he's good. But does that make him the Kentucky Derby winner? And until such time as he shows me he can do what Copan does, which is to say, you take heat, you sit, and then you destroy your rivals from the 1/4 pole to the 1/8 pole. That's what a good horse does.
Yeah.
What this colt's done so far, Citizen Bull, is doing what a lot of horses could do. Now I got to see more. And we will maybe not even learn if he can do that until the Derby itself, because Bob's going to place him where he's going to look at the other horses. He's going to find a race that doesn't have his kind of speed, whether it's here or Oaklawn or somewhere else. And he's going to protect them as a good trainer should. So, I mean, I don't mind downgrade his comeback, but let's not go overboard just yet.
Yeah, and look at the dam sires of these 3 Bafferts in this race. Madaket Road by out of a Smoke Glacken mare, Citizen Bull out of a Distorted Humor mare, and Rodriguez out of a Cherokee Run mare. Sprint, sprint, sprint on the dam side of these pedigrees. And to me, that's where the stamina is, where I'm looking for it in a pedigree, is on the bottom side of it, and the brilliance up top with the sires. So We have questions about all these, maybe moving forward to 1.25 miles, but it's the time of year when that question comes up for all of them. I do want to send out really heartfelt congratulations to the ownership group of the winner here, which is Soros Foundation, SF Racing, Starlight Racing, Madaket Stables of Sal Kuman, Starlight Racing, of course, Jack and Lori Wolf, Stone Street Stables of Barbara Banke, Diane Basher, Determined Stables, not sure who owns there, Robert Masterson, Tom Ryan, Waves Edge Capital LLC, who I'm not sure, and then also we've got Catherine Donovan to congratulate.
Well, Jeremy, I tried to get into that group, but they didn't let me in because I wasn't a billionaire.
It reminds me of Little League, where like the dads of the 3 best pitchers in any town get together and say, we'll be the assistant coaches and we'll all be on the same Little League team and we'll go dominate. I mean, it's to take these powerhouse ownership groups and breeding groups like Stone Street, like SF Racing, like Madaket Stables, Starlight Racing, to put them all together, it just seems like almost an unfair advantage. It's not competitive. The top 3 in this race, top 2 by the same connections. I believe they've got 12 Triple Crown nominees amongst just this kind of huge, massive ownership group. I know they have a cute nickname for themselves, calling themselves the Avengers. I mean, I don't buy into that. I don't think it's good for racing. I don't think it's competitive. And at the sales, I'm sure, it makes it very difficult to buy a 6-figure kind of horse at the sales when you're going against that many people together. I don't know what happened to competition in like my horse is faster than your horse. It seems to be today, it's not my horse is faster than your horse. It's our money can pull together and maybe get a big stud deal someday. That's not healthy to me for the game.
No, it isn't. And you can see the effects of it where you've got 4 horses in the race and 3 of them are Bob Baffert trainees. Everybody wants to give a horse to Baffert. Why wouldn't they? And you get these kinds of races, and we haven't even gotten to the Las Virgenes yet. This, which is even worse than this. So it is. I don't know if there's a solution to it. I doubt there is. It's not illegal what they're doing.
No, it's not illegal. It's just like I said, it's like the dads getting together and saying we're all going to be on the same team. It's just like right. It's not illegal. That's the way the rules are written up.
But it's not good for competition. It's not good for racing. But that's maybe too bad for those of us who would like to see a much more competitive situation. But it's not going to happen. And as long as these owners can do what they're doing and want to do it, then they're going to do it. Who's going to stop them? And who should stop them?
If the ownership groups are the ones who are all going to get together and save racing, they can't do things like this because they're part of the problem, not the solution with situations like this. I'm off my soapbox. I do like Citizen Bull as a racehorse. I don't know how far he can go. We will see with the 2-year-old champion next up. He'll probably have to separate from stablemate Barnes and moving forward. You would have to think on the Baffert barn where they end up next. Speaking of 3-year-olds, let's go to our third topic, the Triple Crown Tracker. We had a lot of prep races last weekend, not only Citizen Bull and what we learned from the Bob Lewis Stakes, but we had action down in Florida at Gulfstream and also at the Big A at Aqueduct for the Withers. Let's start things off by going to the Holy Bull Stakes, where Burnham Square was the victor. Outside post, going to mile and a 16th at Gulfstream, no problem.
Tappan Street is driven and starts to gain 3 wide. Trying to run home from the back is Burning Glory as they race to the first finish line. Louis Saez called on Tappan Street and got a big kick, and he strides to a 1.5 length lead from the outside. Burnham Square tries to bridge the gap, and he starts to gain a bit of ground. Ferocious is flattening out. Off the turn and the stretch drive. Burnham Square under a full head of steam, and he runs by to take the lead with a 16th to go. Tappan Street is fired, but he's second best to Ian Wilkes trainee Burnham Square, who wins the Holy Bull going away under Edgard Zayas. Second is Tappan Street. They were well clear of Burning Glory, who was third. Fourth, Ferocious, 143.
Let's talk Holy Bull, Jeff. Burnham Square, 2 in a row now since adding blinkers. Ian Wilkes says you can't get this horse tired, that he's a finisher. He sure looked like it in this one. What do you make of Burnham Square?
This was a real race for him. I think Tappan Street, who ran second, ran even better than I thought he was going to run. And I picked him to win. He was 9 clear of everybody else, but Burnham Square ran by him like he was tied to a post. I mean, Jeremy, that was, And he did it from an outside draw and rallying wide over a track that's usually not that kind to horses that have to do that.
Mhm.
Lightly raced. He's a gelding. They ran him for an expensive tag first time out, so he doesn't really have that Derby pizzazz or whatever you want to call it, that reputation. But I'm taking him very seriously. It looks like a horse that will run all day. He's got a great kick. His numbers are rising rapidly with every start. He's for real. I'm afraid if you don't have him in your future book, you might regret that. I don't. I know that.
Yeah.
Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the price is going to be shot now, but if you had him early, definitely a horse that could get you a big number. Look, he's got the brilliance on top. He's by a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner in Leon's Map, and he's got that dirt or turf stamina on the dam side that you love. His Dam Linda was a major winner going long on the turf. Back generations, you got more turf route pedigree for this homebred for Whitman thoroughbreds. There's a lot to like here, and look, Ian Wilkes is going to kind of be the Valparaiso of the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, when you like walk into the Kentucky Derby and he could potentially be with one of the favorites in here, he's like the mid-major going against all the big names, right? You know, Cox, Baffert, Fletcher. They've got horses ad nauseum that are running out through this year's Triple Crown Trail. Ian Wilkes is going to be one that's easy to root for, right? I mean, he's a guy a lot of people like, longtime assistant to Carl Nafsker. He's been around great horses throughout the course of the last 50 years around the racetrack, and he's a very likable guy. This is going to be a horse a lot of people are going to get attached to for the side elements of it, but he looks like a legitimate racehorse on the track. He's bred for it. He's getting good right now. I wouldn't see any reason to bring him back in the Fountain of Youth. He's run 2 straight route races at the meet. I think you go Florida Derby or you wait for the Bluegrass, which is a race that obviously the Whitmans and Ian Wilkes support the Keeneland meet strongly. I think you'll see this horse in the Florida Derby or the Bluegrass next, and he looks like he could be one of the ones.
I think the Florida Derby makes sense because he's already won now twice at Gulfstream. Keeneland can be a little quirky sometimes, and why step out when you can just run in the Florida Derby and give yourself a month in between that race? And the other thing about Burning Glory is that whatever he's doing at Gulfstream doesn't always work out this way. I know, but with his style, whatever he's doing there, he should do just as well, if not better, at Churchill. So it's not like the track is making him look better than he is. In this case, he may not be. He may be better than he's looking. I thought that was a terrific result. Again, I thought Tappan Street, considering his lack of experience, I thought that was a really good race himself. He could win a big race somewhere. But in looking at those two, it's going to be hard for me to ever pick Tappan Street to beat Burning Glory again, unless Tappan Street somehow rises to the occasion. No, it was a legitimate race. My first impression with this race before when they drew into it wasn't going to be much of a race, but I was wrong. This was a good race, and this could be a very productive race down the road.
Ferocious was the name horse coming into this race who had some credentials from running a couple grade 1 placings and then coming out of the Breeders' Cup 5th place finish last year at 2. He was lightly trained up to this by Gustavo Delgado and his group there. He ran like a horse who needed a race, obviously. He showed a little bit and then kind of threw out the anchor. A short horse, if you will. That was part of the handicapping process going into it. You had to look at, yes, he's got good 2-year-old form, but this horse was not prepared. You want a horse with 6 workouts coming off a long layoff like that. That's kind of the magic number everybody talks about. When you come off a layoff, 6 works until you're ready to go. He was only halfway there, and one of them, I believe, were 16, 18 days apart, so there was a gap in the workout tab. Ferocious was a short horse, ran like it. Maybe you give him a shot to tighten up and run better. I would expect he would be a horse I want to see back in the Fountain of Youth now. I want to see him bounce back in a month, come back, run second off the layoff. He needs to be a 3-prep horse to me, the way they trained him up to this race, and I hope that that's the route that they go. I'd like to see Ferocious back next in the Fountain of Youth to see if he doesn't improve a little bit.
One other horse I want to mention who ran in this race, he didn't do much running. He was entered, though, and that's Guns Loaded. And remember we talked about, we were evaluating the Mucho Macho Man, and he won the race, and it was life and death. And it was not, that I've had horses when they win, and I go into the winner's circle, and I'm depressed because I think that might be the last race they ever win.
that was their Derby,
Right, and Guns Loaded in this race finished dead last. He got beat, 20, 30 lengths, whatever it was. And you got to be real. You can't fool your eyes don't lie, is what I'm trying to say. And when we saw that race with guns loaded, and I'm talking about a horse who was 5-1 in this race. It wasn't like he was a big long shot.
Right.
I think both of us said, that's not what I want to see.
Yeah.
And in terms of ferocious, yeah, he was a dead short horse, but I don't think I've ever seen him actually finish in a race other than his first start. I don't.
Yeah.
He's whatever list I'm compiling, he's not on it. I'm sorry.
Correct. Yeah, I haven't had him ranked, and I still wouldn't. But
Yeah.
I think he'll run better next time than he did in this one. But I still don't know that he's a mile and a quarter horse,
Right.
which is the case with a lot of these, and that's what we're talking about. One horse who did seem like a horse who will run all day, Treaty of Rome, who did rally to run second in that Mucho Macho Man. Does that look like a bit more of a paper finish to you, than the reality with the way Guns Loaded came back and ran? But at least with Treaty of Rome, he was cutting back with the 1-turn mile. He gets to go back to 2 turns and probably what he wants to do. That might be Chad Brown's top horse. Chancer McPatrick is back working seriously and right on pattern right now. So we'll see what Chad is able to do in getting Chancer McPatrick back, his horse who won grade 1 last year as a 2-year-old. Chancer McPatrick, Treaty of Rome seem to be like the 2 Chad Browns right now. That we're talking about for Florida. Also on the Triple Crown tracker last week, we go to New York to Aqueduct for the Withers Stakes. 1 1/8 in the Withers Stakes. And I got to be honest, going into this race, I didn't think there'd be anything really to talk about going into it. Coming out of it, though, we've got a little bit of chatter about Captain Cook.
And now tells Captain Cook to go because Surfside Moon was ready to pounce on the grandstand side. Captain Cook is showing more, and Captain Cook is now up by a length and a half. Surfside Moon continues to give game chase. Omaha is running on for third. Here is Captain Cook with the 16th left to go. Captain Cook is up by 2. Surfside Moon is second, but Captain Cook wins the Withers. Captain Cook wins it over Surfside Moon, Omaha, and Mo Quality in 1:51.
Now, that's a Rick Dutrow trainee pickup in the transfer portal, if you will, from Cassie, Norm Cassie, the young Cassie, had this horse in the first start, but to 2 races since going to Rick Dutrow, won by 9 at Aqueduct and Maiden Company at the end of December, then comes back here and wins nicely in the Withers. Jeff, they went sub 13 the final 8th of the mile in the Withers. Since they've gone to 1 1/8 in the Withers and made it early in a year like this, he's the first horse ever to break 13 seconds for the final furlong there. That was a pretty good finish for that kind of race and for a horse who was pressing the pace. So, sometimes you come home because things were slow and then you just kind of, picked up the pace at the end. He pressed the pace and still was able to come home. I thought this was a better than looks effort, and the field spread eagled, I think 16 lengths first to fourth.
It may have been better than looked, and it looked good. So if it's better than looked, that's even better. We talked about this race last week, and I said that Captain Cook has the highest ceiling, but that's based on a 7-furlong sloppy track maiden win. Doesn't always transfer. So I was really curious to see if he could take his promise and project it over fast ground over 9 furlongs by a sire who gets basically 1-turn horses or milers. Anyway, practical joke. And boy, he shrugged that off like it was nothing. I mean, you mentioned the last 8. That's really the best part of that race. He reached back for reserve energy that I wasn't sure he had, and he's got it. And now I think Dutrow can say, okay, I know he's a good horse. I don't have to panic anymore. Okay, I got to find the right spot and get him to Kentucky the best way I can do it, because the distance isn't going to be a problem. The quality of this colt's not going to be a problem. The numbers are strong. I like him a lot. I don't know whether he's quite up to the very best yet because he hasn't beaten the very best. The horse he beat here, not much at all. But well, he did it the right way, Jeremy. And he's also the kind of colt that can absolutely get better and better with racing and maturity and experience. And he's intriguing to me very much.
I don't know many 3-year-olds that could go 151-4 over the track at Aqueduct this time of year, right? That's significant. And to go 1261, he not only shaded 13, he went 12-3. The final 8th of a mile. That was really impressive by Captain Cook. Look, he's a $400,000 son of Practical Joke. Well, you and I have said it a million times. Practical Jokes are better around 1/3. But if you look the dam side of this pedigree, you're going to see Indian Charlie is the dam side, and you're going to say, I don't know about 1 1/4. The third dam is Birdtown, the Kentucky Oaks winner. So there is distance in the dam side of this pedigree. So I like Captain Cook. He's owned by St. Elias Stables. Vinny Viola and his wife Teresa. they've brought some really good horses to the Derby over the years. Captain Cook could be one. And you said get him to the Derby in the right place. It almost has to be the Wood Memorial is the race that makes sense for him. He's already won at the 1 1/8 now. You don't cut back and run in the Gotham to a mile. That does him absolutely no good. I think you just wait for the Wood Memorial. You'll be the favorite or worse. No worse than if somebody big comes up from Florida, the second choice in the Wood Memorial, and you go from there. He got 20 Kentucky Derby qualifying points in this race. Second or third in the Wood, more than enough to get you over the top and into the Derby. So I think we'll see one more race out of Captain Cook, and he is interesting. He is a horse who was not even on my radar whatsoever going in to the Withers, and he becomes squarely on my radar coming out of it. So that was one of the big movers of the week. Let's talk about the Swale Stakes next on our Triple Crown tracker. Deep segment here this week. The Swale Stakes, to me, I thought was going to be all about Gunmetal, who was a fast winner for Brad Cox in his debut at Fairgrounds. I thought this was a good placement to bring the horse to the 7 furlong swale, but it wasn't about Gunmetal. Instead, it was a horse named Gate the Wire who won. Against his name, he came from off the base, but he looked good too.
And now tells Captain Cook to go because Surfside Moon was ready to.
They move past the opening half mile, and they turn for home, and Macho Music, he has the lead under Castellano to the attack. Gate to Wire at a big number, tries to go get him. They come past the 8th pole. Gate to Wire has pounced on the speed, and he's in front and clearing off with the 16th to go. The 2025 Swale Stakes to Donegal Racing's Gate to Wire. He won by 3.5. Second, Macho Music. Third was Gunmetal. Fourth was Fire Pit. Grayscale faded badly to 5th and 122-2.
That was a pretty good cast, Jeff, for the Swale Stakes this year. I thought Gunmetal did not run to expectations. I'm going to give you a little nugget about him in a moment, but tell me your impressions of Gate to Wire.
He's a good mover. He's a good athlete. You look at his pedigrees by monies, basically a miler type of stallion, but a high-class miler for sure. Out of a mare by Street Cry, they'll run on. We know that. This was his first try at 7 furlongs. They've been running him 5/8 of a mile. He doesn't strike me as a quick type horse. He won going away here. I don't see any reason why he won't run on. Again, you always say to yourself, well, can he run on to 1.25 miles? I don't know, but sometimes you see a horse winning 6 3/4 of a mile, 7/8, and you just know that's it. Okay, they're not running any farther. But this is a horse who he's not that quick. But unlike late running sprinters that we know of, this one actually looks like he will run and wants to run long. He won by 5. The runner-up was 4 clear of Gunmetal, who was very disappointing. He was 4 to 5. Maybe it was too much for him to come back. But this is a colt that earned a 96 buyer number in his debut. It seemed like a logical place to run him back to find out if that 96 number was real. It obviously at this stage was not. But I'm pretty sure that Pletcher is going to explore now whatever possibilities he can find as to when and where to stretch him out, because I don't think there's any doubting of this is a quality colt. Whether or not he's a router, we'll find out. But I loved his race. I'm sorry. I think he's a good colt. I'd follow him up the ladder, see how far he can go.
Fountain of Youth makes a lot of sense. Going to 1 mile and a 16th, you're on the same pattern of the horses coming out of the Holy Bull. You know, I love these turfy dam sides and quality. The second dam was a filly who ran second in the Prix de l'Opera and won the Grade 2 Ribblesdale overseas at 11 furlongs at Ascot. So that's the second dam. It's pretty close up in the generations there. So Gate to Wire, I think, like you said, even by money, is probably going to run on. It wasn't blazingly fast late in this race. Obviously 13-2, the final 1/8 of a mile in this one at Gulfstream. Gunmetal, the big disappointment. I really had him ranked higher. Something interesting, though, literally about 5 minutes before we came on the show, the Triple Crown nominees were announced, and they sent out a spreadsheet of all the horses nominated the Triple Crown. So I looked on it on Excel, and interestingly, it had the foaling date of every horse. So I just did a sort on it, just out of curiosity, to see who were the young horses, the old horses. The youngest horse of 373 Triple Crown nominees is Gunmetal, May 29th foal. So when you talked about maybe they asked him to do a little bit too much coming back quickly off of that win at Fairgrounds, he might not be ready yet. And obviously he ran like a horse who wasn't ready for that test. And so for me, he's a horse I have a lot of promise about, and I think he will be a good horse. He's probably just not a horse for this year's Triple Crown Series, the way it seems. And being a May 29th foal, playing catch-up like that in development, now he's got to play catch-up with a backtracking race, right? I mean, it wasn't a move forward off the debut race. He took a step backwards. So to me, that kind of eliminates him. He's one of the big losers of the weekend. But I didn't realize, they tell you May full, obviously, in the past performances, but he's damn near a June full, May 29th full. He's the youngest horse of 373 nominated the Triples Crown, that being Gunmetal.
Right. I'd back off, and I'm sure that's what they'll do. The other horse that ran in this race that we thought was going to run better was Grayscale, romping winner at Gulfstream in his maiden race last November for Saffy Joseph. He was actually 7-5 in the race behind the 4-5 that Gunmetal was, and Grayscale was right there outside on close to the lead and just waved the white flag. So this game can be humbling. You can have all kinds of Derby hopes and dreams, and it can evaporate in a minute and 20 seconds sometimes.
Right. Donegal Racing, the owner of Gate the Wire, they like to get to the Triple Crown races. They've had a lot of starters over the years. So that intent, right, and that Derby fever that kicks in, a lot of times we'll decide, okay, are we going to try to send this horse longer or not? I would bet good money that this one will get a chance to go longer in the near future, Gate the Wire. If not the next start, maybe in a final prep going in towards the Triple Crown. One more race on our Triple Crown tracker this weekend, not in the stakes ranks, but River Thames was a horse we had as one of our stars of tomorrow a couple of weeks ago in winning the debut race. He came back in a Lowndes Company, and he might have even won up that performance. Here he is at Gulfstream over the weekend in a Lowndes Company from Saturday, River Thames.
Outside, River Thames to take a clear lead. Vanderbilt has to fight back toward the inside. Two better than White Whale. Skate Away is next. 1/8 of a mile to go. On the outside in River Thames, Johnny V rouses him forward, and the son of McLean's Music has a kick, and he's a winner. It's all River Thames in the final 16th of a mile. He clears off. River Thames by 4 in the end. Second, Vanderbilt. White Whale is third. Skate Away is fourth in 1:10.
Jeff, this is one I think, though, is better off staying short. Maybe you will disagree with me here, but he's by McLean's Music, not known to get a router. I don't see it necessarily on pedigree. And this is the horse who ran 25-4 to fourth quarter of this 1/3 mile. That was on the slow side. Just a 91 brisk late pace figure for River Thames on the back end of this race. To me, that doesn't translate into a big-time two-turn player. But again, we're just trying to get him to a 1 1/8 at this point, right? Like to say, I don't know if this horse is a 1 1/4 horse. We don't know that about any of them. But you got to get to a 1 1/8 and run decent in one of the final preps to be a Derby horse. So can we get to a 1 1/8 with him is really the question.
I don't really think that he was considered to be a Derby type colt. He's a New York bred, and I don't think Todd Pletcher was thinking of him in those terms. Otherwise, he probably would have run him in some kind of stakes race to start accumulating points. I mean, you never see a Derby horse who's building a resume who they really do have Triple Crown hopes for run an allowance race. They don't get nothing for that. And sometimes these stakes races come up a little bit easier. But I like the win. He won from the rail. He was on the inside. He was striding out nicely at the end. He wasn't going that fast towards the end, but it was just a second career start. I think he's a quality colt. I don't know how serious they're going to be with him and whether or not they're going to step it up. He might be the kind of horse that they keep around one turn for a while, and then maybe come Preakness time or something, they take a flyer. I don't know. But I think that there's ability there. It's not like he's beating up on bad horses and not running particularly fast. The buyer numbers are solid, and he does move well. He's a good athlete. So I'm really curious to see just where they go with him next, whether they step out and try some big boys or whether they're going to try to protect. I mean, obviously, you're never going to get a 2 other than the field, so he's got to run in a stake somewhere. But is it a sprint stakes? Is it a 1-turn mile time? Or are they going to stretch him out and find out what they got? But I like him. I mean, he's still a future star as far as I'm concerned, as we made him when he broke his maiden. Now the question is, how soon is that future going to be?
Right. We'll see what the Pletchers have. He's got Vassimo and some others who are kind of rising up through the ranks too, and where they go and how things shift for some of the other contenders. Now that you get through that allowance condition, there's nowhere to go but the stakes. You've got to see what you've got there in terms of finding a race for them. Okay, so that's our Triple Crown Tracker long segment this week. We did want to say which prospects fell by the wayside over the past weekend. I think Guns Loaded and Gun Metal, the two guns, probably had the worst days of anybody.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. that's what happens this time of the year. You rise or you fall, and we're going to see other horses that are going to fall. Right now, everybody's got those hopes and dreams, but they can disappear quickly, and that's what's going to happen, even with good horses, and that's assuming they all stay sound, which is not going to happen. So everybody still has those derby dreams, and every week we'll gain a couple, maybe, and lose a few.
Let's switch gears now, go to our fourth topic this week on It's Official. We're going to talk some 3-year-old fillies. Of course, when you look at the 3-year-old fillies across America, Brad Cox has the hammer on him this year, right? I mean, he had Immersive, won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Mohima, Eclatant came back and won. Good Cheer. Eclatant won the Forward Gallon, a 1-2 finish for Brad Cox. So we know what Brad Cox has on the East Coast and in the Midwest, a dominant hand to play in the 3-year-old filly and Kentucky Oaks ranks. But for our fourth topic this week, we're talking West Coast because of what we saw last weekend on the track, and it's Tenma and everybody else on the West Coast after watching her win in the Las Virgenes and scouting what is west of the Mississippi.
Second, as Hernandez peeks back on Tenma, they have a 4-length lead at the top of the stretch. Just as Fancy and Cipriani. Cipriani now clearly into second at the 8th pole. Tenma 4-length lead. Cipriani is trying hard, but as they come to the 16th pole, Tenma towered over the competition. Strolling through the stretch, and she'll report home 6 lengths in front of stablemate Cipriani. Just as Fancy checked in third.
What do we make of Tenma? Is she the one to beat from the West Coast in the 3-year-old fillies?
Well, I want to mention Cipriani, her stablemate, who had a maiden win back in October last year. That was it. She wasn't even ready to run, and she ran second and did well. I mean, she's a good filly too. They were just kind of in there just to give her some experience and basically to fill the field, make sure the race goes. And Tenma, you talk about Baffert and $850,000 2-year-old in training sales. Cipriani was a $875,000 2-year-old in training buy. So if you go into the 2-year-old in training sales, be aware that's what you're going to have to spend if you want one of these kind of fillies. I liked her. I mean, she had one really bad race in the Oakleaf. She won her first start. She won the Del Mar Debutante. She never trained like a good filly, and she never really earned any kind of good numbers. I was thinking maybe she was in the right place at the right time, and that feeling was emphasized when she ran so badly in the Oakleaf that they didn't even bother to run her in the Breeders' Cup. But then she came back in the Starlet. She won very nicely that day. Her buyer number improved very much. Comes back here going a 2-turn mile and wins for fun. I think she's really good. I don't think she's going to have to be any better than she's been to continue to sweep the program here. There's just nothing out there that can touch her. And then we'll find out maybe on Kentucky Oaks Day whether she can handle the avalanche of Brad Cox fillies. That'll be interesting. I think she's really good. It's not her fault that there's nobody out there that can test her. But that's the nature of 3-year-old racing in California. We've lived with it now for a number of years, and it ain't changing anytime soon.
You mentioned that Brad Cox dominant with the 2-year-old fillies. Again, I went into the BetMix database. He ran 6 fillies in graded stakes races last year as 2-year-olds, Jeff. 5 wins and a third. And the one who ran third was Eclatant, who came back and won the Forward Gallon her first start at 3. So right. I mean, if there's a future book play on Brad Cox winning the Kentucky Oaks, try to take it however short the price is. He is going to be very, very tough to beat. Speaking of Brad Cox, he's got our star of tomorrow this week as we finish up our show each and every week with a look at an impressive maiden winner or an undercard type horse who could emerge as a future star. Well, Brad Cox had Emergence, not in the place you would expect to see on the undercard of the Holy Bull, debuting long on the Tapeta, but it was Emergence who was impressive at a nice price.
On with Trip Aces out 3 wide, and they're out the top of the stretch. Here's Emergence going after Global Prosperity. These two off the corner together. Inside Global Prosperity, overhauled by Emergence. 2 back to Daham. He's now third. Outside Trip Aces. They come past the 8th pole. Luis Saez and Emergence clear by as much as he wants. It's 3 now. Daham has rallied into second with Trip Aces launching at him, but the winner is Emergence. He emerged to a 3-length win. Close for second. It's either Daham or Sir.
So with all the options Brad Cox has potentially for Triple Crown horses, Emergence will probably have to take the back door in coming out of this race on the synthetic. Maybe he goes to Turfway for the Jeff Ruby and tries to acquire some, cred towards the Kentucky Derby. He's not nominated to the Triple Crown of the nominees that came out today. So I don't know. They didn't think much of him to run him long synthetic first time, didn't nominate him to the Triple Crown, but maybe he outran expectations, Jeff.
Let me ask you a question. We got the release of the nominees, okay, for the Derby, the early nominations. When did that close? Do you have any idea when that closed?
It was probably a couple days ago. It might have closed before this horse ran.
That's what I'm saying is because they ran him in an all-weather race. They didn't nominate him. I don't know how much expectations they had with him. Maybe they wanted to run him long 2 turns. They didn't want to run him a mile and 1/8. Maybe there was no mile and 1/8 maiden race. I don't know what they think of him, but I do know this: if he won that way on an all-weather, why wouldn't you look for the Turfway? Even if you're not going to run in the Derby, why not? He's got a beautiful pedigree. He's by Uncle Mo, which could be anything. He's a half brother to a couple of horses I'm sure you remember, Jeremy. War Story, remember him? He won $3.2 million. And then another really, really good filly named Landover C, who was actually stakes winner, group stakes winner, second in the Kentucky Oaks. So the pedigree was there. He's by Uncle Mo. He runs long first time out. He earns a solid number, and he does it stylishly. So, I mean, they'll have a chance to nominate again if they really feel he's that way. But I don't know how well regarded he was at the start of his career, but I like what I saw. I can tell you that. And I would be excited if I owned him, even if I knowing that if he's really that good, I can get him in still. But that race at Turfway looks like the right one to me because we know he likes all weather, and a lot of horses who run there, they're just running there just because that's where they can be competitive. But I don't think too many others are going to ship in for that race. So we'll see.
Through the power of the internet, I looked it up while you were talking there, Jeff. Last Monday they closed, the 27th, so we're just announced. So they probably waited for late mail to come in and such, and then made the announcement this week. So yeah, they didn't know about this victory in the debut. The bettors didn't know. They let Brad Cox go 7-1 with the first-time starter who won. Nobody knew, and maybe this is one that will come along later. You can nominate on April 7th at $6,000 instead of $600. So if he wins at Turfway and wins his way into the Jeff Ruby or runs a good race there and wins his way into the Kentucky Derby, the $6,000 will come out of that purse money, I'm sure, of what he ran there. It's China Horse Club. It's a couple different in the ownership group there for that one. So
they're not
they'll have no problem coming up with the cash.
They're not hurt. They'll scrape it together if they have to.
Yeah, for sure. That's Emergence, our star of the future. Let's wrap up the topics this week on a long edition of the It's Official podcast. We started off with the Goosebump Award. It was Copan winning the LeBray Stakes and now back-to-back in the Santa Monica for Jeff Siegel's most exciting performance of the week. Richard Mandela, 4-year-old filly, getting really good. Did we learn anything from our second topic this week? That was Citizen Bull winning wire to wire with just a little blip in the radar at the beginning of the race, but he went wire to wire in the Lewis Memorial to maintain his edge as the top 2-year-old from last year coming into the 3-year-old season. With the Triple Crown tracker took you to Burnham Square's win in the Holy Bull, Captain Cook's win in Aqueduct in the Wither Stakes. We looked at Gate the Wire winning the Swale, River Thames, an allowance winner at Churchill, and we talked about the winners and the losers from a big weekend. River Thames was the winner at Gulfstream in allowance company over the weekend. Tenma and nobody else on the West Coast. She looks like the clear leader of the 3-year-old filly division. Maybe Vodka with a Twist will have something to say with that one a little bit later in the campaign. And our star of tomorrow for last week was Emergence, first-time winner on the Tapeta at Gulfstream for trainer Brad Cox. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's the way we play the game, and we'll do it all again in 7 days' time when we get 5 more topics in racing. We're going to have to get creative next weekend. There's not going to be as many star-studded races on the racetrack this weekend, so we'll get some topical input and things like that for next week's show. The Sam F. Davis at Tampa Bay Downs, the big race on the Triple Crown Trail this coming weekend. Santa Anita's got horses going long on the turf with the older divisions. So in terms of the stakes horses, not a lot of stars out this weekend, Jeff, but should be a good weekend of wagering and following along.
We'll find something, I promise. Yeah. I have to look around, but we'll do well. But last week when we looked back at some of these races, Jeremy, I mean, It was fun. It really was, because we learned that there are some nice prospects out there who are not ready yet, perhaps, to be taken seriously, but they'll get their chance down the road. And so far, so good. So hopefully we have good gambling this weekend and continue on.
We weren't talking about Burnham Square and Captain Cook at this time a week ago, so things change quickly this time of year on the Triple Crown Trail. On behalf of my partner, Jeff Siegel, and everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, we'll be back on Friday for the First Call podcast, where we handicap 8 stakes races for the weekend, so be sure to tune in for that. If we don't see you till then, have a great week, everybody. We'll be back next Tuesday on It's Official.